All right. Again, welcome to the Michigan Saves webinar today. I am Todd Parker, Director of Programs for Michigan Saves. We're very glad that you could join us. As a reminder, this webinar does not represent any legal advice. Our speakers are going to be describing some of their actions and suggestions that they are implementing as they prepare to enter the workforce and to re-enter the homes and businesses of their customers. So please note that this is not legal advice that we're giving you today. And if you have any questions about the materials or the resources that you see on today's slides, please contact one of the Michigan Saves team members and we'll see about getting you additional information. I'd like to, at this time, just quickly introduce our speakers for today. Let me advance the slide here. So we have 4 speakers lined up for you today. Julian Skadden from Nexstar Network will be leading us off. He'll be followed by Matt Bergstrom of Thornton and Grooms. Cameron Seeley will be next from Walker Miller Energy Services, and Bill Christakos of Shasma Heating and Cooling will round out today's presentation of speakers. Also on the line today, I want you to know that Todd O'Grady, the Director of Outreach of Michigan Saves, will also be speaking from time to time. He will be introducing the speakers when it's their turn and facilitating the movement of the presentations. And then finally, I would like to introduce Mary Templeton, the President and CEO of Michigan Saves, for some opening remarks. So Mary, to you.
Thanks, Todd. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to start by expressing our sincere gratitude to those who are on the front lines in the healthcare industry, first responders, those working in the food and delivery systems, and all of those who are working so diligently to care for and support us through the COVID-19 pandemic. We'd also like to acknowledge all of the contractors who've continued to work during the pandemic, whether it's trying to keep your staff employed or perhaps helping your staff deal with an overloaded unemployment system, applying for and waiting to hear whether your application for the Paycheck Protection Program or the PPP was approved, and generally doing whatever you can to maintain your business. I know it's a really hard time for all of us. There are just so many unknowns, and all of us at Michigan Saves hope that you and your families and your teams are healthy and safe, and that you're managing through this as well as can be expected. Like many of you, the Michigan Saves team has been working remotely for what kind of seems like an eternity now. Although we're going a little bit stir crazy, we're really grateful that we're able to work. It's been nice for our team to have the opportunity to connect with so many of you, to hear how you're doing, to listen to your feedback, and to continue to work with our lenders and our partners to offer flexibility for our customers and to offer affordable, attractive financing that you can use with your commercial and your residential customers. We're anticipating that we're going to hear that the construction industry is open to return to work in the next week or so. And as you know, you're required to have a written COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. Although, like Todd said, we're not offering legal advice in this webinar, we're so grateful to this credentialed panel of industry experts who have agreed to share their plans and their strategies for maintaining a safe work environment for both their employees and their customers. We've heard from you that this type of information is really important, and we hope that these conversations are useful to all of you as we navigate this new world together. Call us if you need help with anything. We're here to serve you and to support your business in any way that we possibly can. I'll now turn it over to Todd O'Grady to get us started.
Thanks, Mary. And hello, everyone. It's nice to see some of your faces. I miss your beautiful faces. Well, most of you, I just miss you. But it is nice to talk to everybody and see all these names that I haven't seen or been able to talk to for a few weeks now. So again, thanks for those words, Mary. And as Mary said, when we were, the outreach teams have been reaching out to contractors to find out what's happening out there. We were getting a lot of questions about getting back to work. And then once we heard about the governor's soon to be released order about getting back to work May 7th, we thought we needed to get this information out to everybody. Some contractors are already doing this in their day-to-day. Others haven't even started to prepare. So we thought it was critical that we get this out today. This Zoom might be a little wonky since we threw it together so quickly and we're all fairly new to Zoom, but we're going to do the best we can and get through this. We're trying to keep it to less than an hour, and this is being recorded, just so you know that ahead of time. So our first speaker today is Julian Scadden. He's the VP of Operations at Nexstar Network. And those of you that aren't familiar with Nexstar Network, it's a national, I think maybe international company that helps contractors succeed through education in fields of customer service, profitability, and employee engagement. So with that, Julian, take it away.
Thank you very much, Todd. If I could get a quick thumbs up just to ensure you can hear me. So just a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, very good, thanks. I've been on a few of these calls where all my best points were on mute. So yes, Nexstar Network, we do work with contractors across the nation and even around the globe. And so I'll start with a bit more of a high level perspective on safety. I'll also speak to some of the nuance that we're seeing our members kick off. But I will say this as well. I grew up in the trades. Fresh out of high school, I was a plumbing apprentice. That was my first job. And I've spent the past 3 decades essentially in the trades. So I just want you to know I'm not a talking head behind a desk who thinks I know what it's about. I've been in the field. I ran a business in Atlanta for years. We were plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical. So some of the things that I say, and you know, I want you to understand that this comes from a place of experience. All right. So the first thing I want to focus on is safety in general, and how the processes that you have in the field are going to be paramount to anything else at this time. Now, there are a few operational steps before that you should consider, things such as the messaging. The messaging meaning, does your website update and are you shown as an essential service provider that you're open? These are some very basic things. On your website, have you made mention of any protective measures that you will be taking on the job site? When the call is scheduled, is your call center speaking to the protective measures that you'll be taking? When the technician is dispatched, are they speaking to those protective measures? And when the technician arrives, are they demonstrating those protective measures? Now I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the technician, and just keep in mind, when I share, I'll share from a residential perspective. That's my background, that's my focus. But you can just think of when I say customer or at the front door, your first interaction point if it's a commercial property or if you're meeting a GC on site, things of that nature. So when I say that the field process is paramount right now, you know, we all have processes as leaders and business owners. I know for a fact that I had processes that I felt were non-negotiable. There were certain behaviors and standard operating procedures that I expected of our employees in the field. But I can tell you that I was never 100% sure that they were always being followed. And to some degree, I was okay with that. You know, I wasn't going to chase down a fight at all times on all topics. But I do feel strongly now that as it relates to customer safety, and don't miss this point, employee safety, that we can no longer sit back and hope that these standard operating procedures are taking place. We need to ensure that they're taking place. So this begins with the peace of mind of having the personal protective equipment. Do you have everything you need? So that's a bit more operational and tactical for the leadership team. So first you have to have the equipment. But secondarily, are your technicians trained in how to apply, I'll say, the personal protective equipment? Meaning, when they arrive at the front door, Are they pulling out a fresh pair of gloves out of a box, placing those on in front of the customer, applying the mask and goggles and then the shoe covers? Are they taking the time to do that and model that in front of the customer? Don't arrive, don't show up at the door, don't walk into the building with these things already on. That decreases the belief that you have helped us protect ourselves. Now, as you enter into the service call, I'd invite you to work with your customer, your point of contact, and set the ground rules right away. Because in our industry, most people don't call us unless something's broken. We usually don't get called for good news. So there's already a certain level of anxiety. Now, as it relates to that personal protective equipment and alleviating the customer's anxiety, there's also an anxiety with your employees that you're helping to remove. And here's how you do that. Prior to sending them out to the call, you will train and demonstrate and have them model, just as you would in any of their technical aptitudes, their ability with precision to execute. Not only putting the gloves on, but how you remove them, how you apply a mask. See, right now I couldn't. A beard does not create a seal with a mask, so the beards need to go away. What type of goggles are you using? How do you maintain and measure 6 feet of distance from your customer? So it's really easy now that we have Zoom. You can actually have, and we do have some of our members having daily huddles, morning meetings, having the technician model and show and demonstrate that they can perform these actions to proficiency before they go out on a call. In between each call, having dispatch check in and ensuring that the technician has the equipment they need. Without that equipment, there's no call run. So now let's get back to the customer. They already have a certain level of anxiety. So by modeling and demonstrating how we use the equipment, that begins to alleviate that concern, so now they can focus back on the reason why they called us. And that's to perform a repair or replacement or to get an estimate. The other thing that we'll do after modeling that we have the protective gear is we'll check in with the customer and we'll ask, how would you like to be communicated with? And what I mean by that, throughout the duration of this call, as I need to check in with you, would you prefer face-to-face at 6 foot distance? Would you like if I used FaceTime on my cell phone to yours? How would you like to gather this information? And at the close of each call, the ability to, again, provide a box of gloves, remove a glove for the customer, and a sanitized pen to sign an invoice, or a sanitized tablet. Thinking all of these steps through and each point of the interaction will make an extreme difference with your customer interactions. And not only do these provide comfort and peace of mind to your customer, it provides comfort and peace of mind to your employees. Some of our members, and we're sharing some of these resources with our membership for sure. How do you, I'll use the term decontaminate when you get home? Can you blame an employee if they're going to run 2 to 3 service calls, or if they're going to be in a building, interacting with different people, and then they have to come home? And if you're an employer that cares about your employees' performance, please take the time to walk and talk them through how those discarded materials, just as you would with the homeowner, how those discarded gloves and masks, and therefore their uniform at the end of the day, how they would change or decontaminate prior to walking into their home with their loved ones. What steps should they take as they re-enter their home? Because you're going to interact with different customers on different levels. Just because we're all experiencing the same pandemic doesn't mean we're experiencing it the same way. You will have some customers who have loved ones at risk at home. You will have some customers who are simply inconvenienced by the fact that they weren't able to leave the house. You have some people that are watching every penny and some that are spending freely. But you cannot make your experience of this pandemic the experience of your customer. I can tell you, since this thing kicked off in March, I've had 2 service calls to my home. Both times the technician showed up with no personal protective equipment and didn't even acknowledge it. I was extremely uncomfortable the entire call and couldn't even focus on why they were called out. So eventually I had to speak up and ask them what they were going to do to disinfect the area or protect themselves and my family while they were in my home. Most homeowners aren't going to do that. They're simply going to turn you away or not interact with you. And I think this applies to industrial business as well, that you need to go that extra step. Commercial business as well. Show and not just tell. And don't just show, but also tell. And that takes me back to where I started. Think about your messaging, from your marketing to your call center to your dispatch to the technician on site. And also do things like virtual ride-alongs. Have your cell phone turned on when the technician is there and listen to them describing and explaining how they will put on the personal protective equipment and how they remove it and how the service call will go. Right now, more than anything, you have to ensure that these processes are happening, and you have to coach and train to them. And if you're unsure where to start, Michigan Saves has a plethora of resources. Next, our network, we've offered to join this call to assist in any way that we can. And you're going to hear from some other contractors on this call too that would be open to sharing with you the best practices and what you can do. So don't feel lost. Don't feel set adrift at sea without any help. We're all a little uncomfortable right now, but by pulling together, we can share best practices and strategies that will keep your employees safe, that will keep the customers safe, and allow you to maintain the business that you've worked so hard to create, allow us to serve you to protect it, and then to provide continued service. So I'll pause there. I presume that any questions you have on anything I spoke to, you've made note of, and I'll be available at the end to answer any questions. So thanks again, Michigan Saves. I love the work you're doing to help our contractors in Michigan. And I know how important financing is for those big jobs. So thanks again. I'm here for you.
Thanks, Julian. That was very insightful. And while you were talking, the Denver Public Library called and said that book on the lower level of your shelf to the left is overdue.
Yeah, they're not getting it.
Okay. So thanks again, Julian. So up next we have Matt Bergstrom. Many of you know Thornton and Grooms here in Southeast Michigan. They've been in business over 80 years, plumbing, cooling, and heating here in Southeast Michigan. So with that, go ahead, Matt.
Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up if you can. Great, thank you. Todd, thanks so much, and Michigan Safes, thanks so much for putting this on, and Julian, well said, well said. We are a Nexstar member and have used so much of the processes that they talked about there, but even as you were talking, Julian, the one process I realized that we've missed is this decontamination piece when folks go home, and that's a piece we need to work on and button up. But the piece that I wanted to, I kind of wanted to work, so we're residential service repair replace is the world that we work in. We have been working through this whole time. Our staff has been here part of the time, or most of we've had 50% of our staff who's been here part of the time, and 50% who've choose to go off or in and out at some points in time. So I just want to cover that a little bit, and then yeah, so we're in southeastern Michigan, so we're in Oakland County, Wayne County, so we've been in the brunt of the heaviest part here of things that have been happening in Michigan. We've been working through it, and I think some of the things that we've gone through, I hope I can share with you and help you to understand, so that you don't have to go through some of the same pain that we went through. And I think one of the first things that you need to do to get ready to go back to work as a company, if you haven't, or to ramp up, if you're ramping up even more, is to make sure that your head's in the right place, and that you have a good state where you're at, and you have a good belief where you're at. You've researched things out there, understand how you want to take your company back to market and serve. I'd encourage you to talk to other contractors about it, read in the trade journals of what's going on, and it just helps to demystify some of the things that are going on out in the market, and all the negativity that's out there. And then also understand, I think Julian made a great point, that always our beliefs aren't the same as our people's beliefs, or aren't the same as our customers' beliefs. So we have to also be open and willing to live in that tension of different beliefs as well, and be able to work through those. And I think that's was one of our hardest places to get through early on. Was we were ready to go, we heard a bunch of feedback from our technicians, and we just completely shut off maintenance for a week, because we looked at it and said, should we be doing these calls? And we really needed to get and understand what our state was, and what our philosophy was going forward with that, and understanding that maintenance is an integral part to the system. And what we want to make sure that we're doing when we're going out to every single customer's home is making sure that that equipment is not going to break down for the next 1 year period, is what we really analyzed and try to do on every single call, so that we can say that and understand that maintenance is very important to do, to go out there. So we brought maintenance back, and we are servicing the customers who want us out in their homes. And we're finding that very many people are concerned about their equipment and want to make sure that it's in good working order as we move forward. So rather than taking our own mindset in that, we help to listen to our customers and see what they're saying, what they're asking of us. So we need to get our mindset, our own mindset right first. Second is PPE. And for us, it's PPE or we're out of business right now. If we don't have gloves, if we don't have masks, if we don't have shoe covers and the things that go with that, we're out of business. So we have put somebody in charge of PPE, somebody in charge of making sure that we have it and we have it all the time. I think we're operating from a realm of trying to keep about a 2-month supply of PPE on hand so that we have it. We found it very hard to get things, or things are out a couple of weeks to get them. So you want to make sure that you're continually working on them and trying to get those through. Gloves have been particularly hard lately. It used to be masks. We've seemed to be able to find masks, but gloves have been hard to get. And if you look at it and just say, hey, if I'm using a pair of gloves every call, or maybe sometimes more than a pair every call, I am going through a box of gloves, a box of 50 gloves pretty darn quick. So kind of do that math and work it through on how often you're going to go through that stuff to be able to figure out what you need to have. PPE training, agree 100% with Julian, at the door. And then at the door. And then I think the last thing that just want to touch on is the human side of it and the business side of it. I think for us, we've been able to get guys back to work, but it seems, and I don't know who it's going to be on what day or when it's going to happen, but our guys are having struggles. They get into a call and they get spooked, or they're hearing from the wife at home or from mom and dad at home, and it's just constantly having those conversations of what we're doing, of what we've seen. We haven't had anybody on our crew that has tested positive for COVID. I'm in a mixed group with 9 other contractors, probably close to 800 or 1,000 employees altogether between all of us, and none of that group has had it. So just helping our teams to understand that, and then also just wanting to keep a healthy fear with our employees as well, that we're doing this every single day, every single time. I'm not letting my beard grow back. I'm intent and I'm on it, and just constantly loving and touching our staff, meaning from a phone call perspective, because we've got to remain 6 feet apart, but and understanding and hearing what their concerns are, and just being able to help them through those concerns and being able to work through it, and gently helping them to understand we're an essential business and it's our job to be out here and helping right now. That's just what we need to do, what we've been asked to do, and what we're employed to do. Just like we go to the grocery store or our restaurants, or heaven forbid, having to go to the hospital or see a doctor right now. Those folks, we've been, although we're not put on the level as they are, we've been asked to come out and help every single day, and just reminding our staff that that's our duty, to be able to do that. But being able to make the room and the margin for folks that can't right now because of any health risks or things like that are happening, we've got to be able to work with that. Our government has given us a very good window of things that people don't have to come to work for, and that they can get supported for as well, whether it's FMLA, whether it's the EFMLA, or whether it's the emergency sick paid leave, to be able to help folks through that as well. I know our payroll provider has helped us through a couple of folks that have taken time off and been able to work through that. So that's a good resource to be able to work through that. But we have struggled with the human side and the business side on both sides. And I think the best way that we've been able to work through those two is just understand that there's a tension between those two, and there's always going to be a tension there. But just to be able to realize it, embrace that tension, and then be quick to forgive both ourselves and our team as we work through this, because stuff is changing so fast with the uncertainty of it. And then just being able to raise our hand and own it when we need to make a pivot or make a change, or make a mistake through this process. So we've made plenty of them through the process, but I think it's been fun and it's been engaging to be able to try to figure this out as we go, and work through business with a different problem. But that's what I've got, Todd. Happy to answer any other questions, but really encourage, there's so many resources out there. I think the trade magazines, and there's some really good stuff if you go on Facebook and go to the good stuff and just thumb past all the garbage that's out there, to be able to work that contractors and groups like Nexstar are posting. And that's where you can really create this back to work paper copy of how you're going to do things. There's so many things you can cut and paste together to be able to create that. You don't have to create it on your own. It's out there. It's already been made by so many folks. So do a little bit of legwork there. And I think getting back full force has been a challenge, but it's also been good for us to be able to do that and keep our minds occupied that way. So back to you, Todd.
Well, thanks a lot, Matt. That was really thoughtful, and I really enjoyed your points about the human aspect, the human touch of it. That was really helpful. And again, Matt, Bill, these are contractors that are busy right now working, and just the fact that they're taking the time to help their peers we really appreciate it. Thank you, Matt. So next up, we have Cameron Seeley. He's the program manager at Walker Miller Energy Services. As many of you know, Walker Miller is an energy-based company, waste reduction company based in Detroit, with priority of innovative and cost-effective strategies for energy efficiency. So with that, Cameron, you're up.
All right, thank you, Todd. Can everyone hear me all right? Maybe a thumbs up. Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start off by thanking Todd and Michigan Saves for the opportunity to speak a bit today and share some of the processes we've been working on. Additionally, thank you, Matt and Julian, for what you shared with us thus far. All really good information. My name is Cameron Seeley, and I'm an Energy Efficiency Program Manager with Walker Miller Energy Services, as Todd said. Like many other organizations on this call, Walker is a team really driven by our core values. For us, in times like these, those core values are more important than ever. I mention these core values, not to stand on a soapbox, but because, one of ours happens to be inclusive stewardship. And now more than ever, safety isn't just a legal obligation. We recognize that the well-being of every team member, from our direct installers to our marketing to our outreach, all of them are entrusted in our team's care. So through the diligent work of our safety manager, as well as conversing with our fellow business and industry leaders, we've outlined some processes here today we'll walk through that will allow us to restart our work, hopefully as safely as possible. Now more than ever, all of us, I can see, are within our homes. Those bills are going up, and I think people are really looking to save, and anything we can do to help with that, it's our responsibility. So with that being said, before any program restart, the entire team, regardless of role, will partake in virtual safety training, consistent and based off of CDC guidance and best practices led by our safety manager. All of our facilities will also be undergoing a full sanitization. So this is not only team members going out into homes, but just the entire team in general. We really want to level set what people will be doing, and everyone will have a baseline understanding of the safety processes going forward. On a high level, all field team members visiting a home will, report temperatures every morning at the start of the shift, use PPE such as nitrile gloves, protective eyewear, masks, booties, etc. They'll practice frequent hand washing and use of sanitizer, which I'll get into, as well as even sanitizing their vehicle and products. Move to the next slide. So, going with that, we've developed some safety grouping and leads. I think maybe not the only one who realized that safety is pretty synonymous with communication these days. It's because communication is so vital that we've developed smaller groups to ensure, every idea, concern, and question is communicated upon our return to the field. These groupings will be led by internal leaders, and any message of high importance communicated to them can be dispersed amongst the entire team through a safety hotline we've developed, managed by our senior leadership. So this is a way for us to be efficient with our communication, but also ensure, we've tried to cover all of our bases, but realistically, There might be some things that we've missed, and the sooner we can get that dispersed amongst the team, even the day of or the moment we're notified, I think that's the most efficient way to get that message out. So every small group that we've talked about, maybe groups of 4 or 5, will participate in pre-shift and post-shift check-in. As this is a scary, new, and challenging time for everyone, it's important that we consistently engage, for us, not only our clients and homeowners, but our internal teams. It's really our responsibility as team leaders to ensure they're comfortable and okay with the work being performed each day. It's not lost on us that everyone is eager to get back to work now, but who knows to say if there's a second spike or anything that could happen in the future. And we want to make sure we're gauging that comfort the best that we can so we can pivot and move accordingly. If we need to up our safety processes, if we need to communicate something across the board, I think every team having an open hotline or a way for that information to get across is more pivotal and important than ever. So additionally, as an organization, just as a background, we operate some pretty large programs. In 2019, our programs allowed us an opportunity to enter over 35,000 homes. As you can imagine, that's not just a couple people doing that work. That's a lot of team members. So we have a lot of direct installers interacting with one another daily. It was really important that we broke up our day-to-day inventory processes that typically involve perhaps the entire team into these small groups to ensure social distancing. Each small group would then complete their daily warehouse or common space activity during an assigned time slot. So kind of what does that mean? So for every group of 5 that we have, say Monday is now your inventory pickup day from 7 to 7:15 a.m. The next group is 7:15 to 7:30. So on and so forth, and maybe some other days. Maybe your day is now Tuesday from 7 to 7:15, and another is 7:15 to 7:30. This allows a very large team to still get the work they would done, but still maintaining social distancing. Some teams have facilities in which, all their products held in one place, such as ours. We've mapped our entire warehouse with tape indicating 6 feet increments, just to kind of take off that stress of your team member of, am I social distancing? Am I maintaining that? But it's really just right there for you. And it's one less thing as we all kind of work through these new challenging processes. And I'm sure everyone can agree, sometimes new things in general can just be scary. So it's one more thing they don't have to think about each day. Slide 3. Again, this is a high-level overview of the safety checklist we'll be completing prior to returning. Just kind of wanted to touch on this, and that something, a tip that we've found has been really helpful is to take a high-level checklist of things that need to be completed, and then assign team members to really break that certain subject down granularly. And maybe, with SharePoint or whatever system you utilize on Excel, break down an owner for each of those processes so you can stay on top of that timeline and make sure by the time you return, everyone has their checklist done, and maybe a team of senior leadership can review that. But it allows for buy-in for the entire team and also transparent accountability. Next slide. So as mentioned by Matt, our team also thought it was very important to have several months of PPE lined up and ready for our return. Not only does this mitigate any concerns about a shortage to our clients, it also has provided comfort to our own team members. They don't have to worry if they see on the news that something's now in a shortage. They know at least the next 3 months are completely caught within our own inventory, and we'll be able to provide them that. We've chosen, based off CDC recommendations and our own internal discussions, nitrile gloves, foot covers, masks, hand sanitizer, sanitizing spray, eyewear. And with that, I think Julian mentioned, we'll be disposing those and putting our new ones every time we enter or leave a home. So everything can be disposed in a waste receptacle in the van of the field team member, but no PPE will be utilized in the same home twice. Even if you leave that home and step outside to go back to your van or whatever, you'll still be sanitizing those gloves and making sure that whatever you bring into a home and leave with a home stays in that area, and you aren't carrying, even by accident, anything that you shouldn't or wouldn't want to. Next slide. So a lot of this, comes down to, there's a lot of new processes. So how do we level set? As we continuously implement these new safety processes, we recognize the business still needs to get completed. To increase productivity of our team, we'll also pre-screen homeowners for current or recent symptoms of 2 weeks during our appointment reminder calls. If a resident within the home has indeed experienced any symptoms, we'll kindly inform the resident that the appointment must be rescheduled due to an abundance of caution regarding safety. This helps us minimize any unexpected cancellations, due to COVID or perhaps an illness with similar symptoms. It's allergy season, I am a lucky person who gets really bad allergies. So I know what it's like that maybe you just have symptoms that seem as though they could be COVID, or a cough that's a little dry. That's understandable. You know, it's going to happen. The world's still spinning, and there's still other, unfortunately, sicknesses out there. But instead of taking any risk, we want to level set ahead of the time so that that specialist or the person arriving at the home, even when they do a 30-minute reminder call, also asking that question, because you might schedule in April for an appointment in May, and who's to say you haven't, gotten an illness by then. You can still have that level set clear to the homeowner. We might still cancel and reschedule, and it's because we care about your safety and we care about our team. And I think the same thing, depending on your organization, if you work perhaps with, a multifamily complex, property owners as well, engaging with them with multiple, steps to maybe a few weeks out and a few days prior to entering. Realistically, you might not be able to contact every single resident within every unit. That's to be expected, but the same processes apply where if you feel unsafe for whatever reason, your team member has that call that they can make at their discretion to leave the unit. And, putting their safety first, as well as that person within that unit. And, that PPE, after utilized within any unit, isn't utilized again, and it's sanitized for gloves. So you're not taking anything that shouldn't leave that apartment, even unwillingly or by accident. Next slide. So lastly, all PPE really utilized within the home or unit will be properly disposed of within the team member's van receptacle. Their vehicles, tools, products will also be sanitized each appointment that are used as well. Kind of here's some more of the verbiage that, the technician may utilize in contacting their supervisor. And really, for us, some of the work we do involves touching part of the home. So it's not only our equipment per se, but it's being mindful of things that you might be touching within their property. So say you're installing a thermostat and your arm rests against that wall. It's important that you make sure you sanitize. You don't, kind of like a national park, don't take anything, or don't bring anything out. It's kind of the same concept here of just being mindful of how things were when you arrived and how things are when you're leaving, and keeping things as isolated as they can so that the work can still be done. You can provide those savings and hopefully, a better experience for homeowners who need it right now, but you're doing it safely. That's everything I had on my end, but as my colleague stated, more than happy to take questions at the end.
There we go. I said a lot of nice things about you, Cameron. Anyhow, thanks, Cameron. And it was quite a well-planned execution that Walker Mellor Energy Services is conducting, and we really appreciate you guys sharing your information with us. Next up, we have Bill Christakis with Shasma Heating and Cooling. Many of you know Shasma has been around since 1905, serving the Grand Rapids, the beautiful lakeshore area of Lake Michigan. So with that, Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Michigan Saves, and all the presenters. Very informative so far. A lot of what I got to say, you're going to have heard already. Understanding that Grand Rapids area in West Michigan is dramatically different than what's going on the east side of the state. It's much less intense. For our company, we have had most of our people off for a while, doing just emergencies and service. And we brought them back last week to get ready for the start. Some of the things that we have in place, starting with the phone calls, all of our customer service reps and our lead coordinators are scripted, asking the same questions about sickness and anybody testing positive, anybody travel. If we get a yes on some of that, we've given the employee the option to opt out of that call. If we get an active case or an active positive, we're probably going to reschedule that. But on every one that's going to be made by a manager, that decision is going to be made by a manager at that time. For sales calls, we've been doing a virtual sales call, utilizing Zoom, and the technology that we have, and I'm sure a lot of other contractors have, is XOI technology. We also have implemented a virtual service diagnostic, which is an option, and fairly successful with that. As our people come back to work, we've designated a person to deal with the PPE just like everybody else has. We ask permission to take their temperature. That person is outfitted in all the right gear. We have a number of different masks. We have a few of the N95 masks that we are reserving for calls where we might have to go in a little, where there might be an illness or somebody has been symptoms, but not a positive test. So have a little bit of that, but for the most part, we have been having daily meetings. We do it in small groups. We do face-to-face. I realize a lot of people are doing Zoom, but we're doing it in small groups and demonstrating what we want done, demonstrating how to enter the house, how to take off gloves, making sure the gloves go inside out when you take them off. We have prepped everybody, and we've gotten a bunch of commercial type disinfectants and wall mount type disinfectants, and we mounted them in all the trucks. We've supplied everybody with sanitizers and rags. We brought in a washer and dryer to launder that stuff and disinfect it after every use. Teaching people how to store it, use it, and again, we daily meetings with these people. We've staggered our start times on installs, so we don't get everybody in there at once. If we're in a house, it's certainly going to be don't share your tools if it's a two-man job. We're trying to make everything one person and limit the two-person interactions. Sanitize your tools after every one. Sanitize the house and every place that you've touched. And one of the things that we've done is when we do an install, not giving the homeowner instruction face-to-face. So what we do, and this is where our XOI technology comes in, we make a instructional video and embed that in their invoicing, and so they can watch how to do the maintenance and how the instructions on the thermostats and stuff. So we are trying to limit our face-to-face time with the customer. We've instructed people on knocking on the door and stepping back and so forth. And one of the reasons we want to have face-to-face is so we can demonstrate all this to everybody. So again, one other thing that we've done, our lawyer provided us with a template for a policy, for a return to work policy. Very comprehensive. It lays out our responsibilities, the employees' responsibilities, and our responsibilities toward the customers. So he gave us a template. We picked and choose the items that we want and put it together. So we're ready to go on that front. Again, a lot of things that we're doing, we've already heard. So there's no real sense into repeating it, but available for questions. And again, thank you, everybody. So.
Thank you, Bill. Very helpful. And for those of you, please remember to send in questions to outreach at Michigan Saves, or better yet, just use this chat line that's at the bottom of your screen. If you scroll down, you can send in a question. With that, we'd like to bring in Todd Parker back up to facilitate the Q&A.
Thanks, Todd. Before I go there, I'm just going to put back on the screen some of the Michigan Saves resources and links to resources that we have come up with. These are things that we've sent out in some emails already, so feel free to click here or click those resources if you have any questions or need some other assistance. Had a couple questions come in already. First one is for Matt, and maybe Bill, I might want to chime on this one as well. Do you disinfect the workspace in the house? And if so, do you tell the homeowner what chemicals you use? Matt or Bill?
That's a really good question. We are disinfecting the workspace. Couple different things we're using. We're using wipes. mostly bleach-based wipes that we're using. And then we are also using a couple of different sanitizers, ones that are alcohol-based, made by some local distilleries that have actually trying to support local in that as well. And then also using some bleach as well. So we're using, if you go on Google, you can make up different sanitizers with bleach that are both available for your hands and available for a higher for surfaces. And yes, we we show and then also help the customer understand what we're doing there as well. That we're going to, our technicians are typically doing it before they work on it, and then they're doing it again after they're done to sanitize the area. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same. We have some sanitizers that we made, and we, again, like Matt, we found some disinfectant locally. We do show the homeowner what we're using. But one other thing that we'll do is if we need a door opened, if we need someone to operate a thermostat or some things moved out of the way, we'll ask the homeowner to do that. And so we limit what we do touch. So.
Great. Another question again for Matt and Bill, perhaps. What type of messaging are you giving to your customers, and what method are you using to deliver that? Call, text, email?
Go ahead, Bill. I'll let you take it first.
Well, for us, we're going to go over on the phone what we do. When we confirm a call and we send a confirmation, there'll be there's a written paper that we have on all the steps that we're going to take to protect their home and their and their safety. So it's done by email. The website, I don't have a whole lot to do, so I didn't look on there yet to see what we got on there, but my partner's been handling that stuff, so I would imagine we have some stuff on the website as well.
Yeah, we've added it to social media going out as well. And then we really make it important that the technicians ask that question as well while they're at the door, just in case anything has changed. They are really asking them, hey, you guys need to take responsibility for yourselves and for your safety. Just we're doing it on the phone, we're doing it at dispatch and at call, at the inbound call, but we're also doing it checking up at the door as well.
Great. Question for potentially all three of you, if you'd like to weigh in on this one. What are the guidelines for when to use sanitizing spray in a customer setting? Or are there any guidelines for using sanitizing spray?
So in a couple of different places, specifically around the furnace, we're not using the bleach product. We're using the bleach product on the cabinet and around the surface areas that we're using. Anything that is in the airstream, we are using a specific product. I can't remember what it's called, but it's kind of a coil cleaner based product that we are using that so it's safe in the airstream in that realm. But we're pretty much asking our guys to sanitize anything that you're going to be touching, and anything that you have touched is where we're going, along with your tools and things like that as well. Hope that.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Anything that you touch or got near, even. I mean, anything in the area that you work, we want to spray and wipe down.
Yep, I'd go ahead and echo what's been stated by Bill and Matt.
Great. Have you found difficulties finding and sourcing or finding sources of PPE?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gloves have been getting real hard lately. The masks have been hard. I think it's been 10 days to get them. Not to pull a plug out for a supplier, but John Stone had just notified us that they had masks available and gloves available. So if somebody's looking, that might be a place where you reach out and go. They've been pretty good with that. Home Depot's been hit and miss at times, and times where we've tried to get them from there as well. So
Yeah, we've gloves have been tough. We've ordered them online. We found a bunch at Harbor Freight, and we bought them out before they put a limit on it. Now they turned around and started donating them to first responders, but we've made our own masks in some instances. We had when our people first started coming back, we made them. We had them set up to make them.
right, yeah.
We're making them we're cutting up MERV 13 filter media and putting them together so they're very close to N95. So, and we'll hand those out to our customers. If they don't have a mask available and they would like one while we're there, or we'll give them out, whoever needs them. So.
We were having a conversation yesterday with a group of contractors, and the thing to consider, which is a great point, 2 points. Number one is, one of our members who's doing really well, he's in Ohio, and, they had some pretty tight restrictions relatively early. He's got a crew, and all they do is run around town looking for PPE all day. That's what they do every day, again, to stay ahead of that 90-day window that you want to keep. So that's one thing. The second thing that came up on the call, though, that I feel compelled to share with you, as our government starts to open restrictions, you're going to notice even more demand on this equipment. So you've got to probably be ahead more than 3 months, because as retail opens, as these other things open, they're going to start having the conversations that we've been in front of since March, because we knew we had to do this. So those conversations are now starting at your retailers. They're starting at your restaurant. So just be aware that there's going to be, I perceive, and I believe there'll be a spike in demand for these products as well. So 3 months may not be enough either. That's what I wanted to share.
Yeah. We've also used I don't know, it's kind of like a mesh glove that's like dipped in PVC. Our installers have been using that to protect, along with wearing the other gloves underneath it, so they're not going through so many pair of gloves or taking a chance of hurting themselves. And we can then sanitize or wash those other gloves later, so you can get multiple use on those, as well as protecting your hands a little bit, and hopefully not going through as many of the knurled gloves. So just a different way to look at it too.
Okay. Julian mentioned using safety messages in marketing. Do any of the speakers have examples on how they are doing that? Written or verbal in sales calls? Any thoughts on that?
We have added, some comments on providing safety in our calls and in our service. Not, I mean, we have some mailers go out where we put it in, and so yeah, I guess the answer would be yeah.
Yeah, we on our end haven't had to, or we haven't really engaged yet in full-on marketing regarding anything, just because the kind of shifting goalpost of return timelines and, the qualifications for what is safe. So we want to make sure we're not producing or sending anything that becomes dated upon implementing. But at least verbally, which is where we've been kind of able to keep our realm, is we've had to contact a lot of homeowners that have been rescheduled, or appointments that have been shifted. And during that, it's kind of a whole new pitch, and that we really want to make them aware of all the new safety processes we have, just in general, because it can be a bit alarming and a sign kind of the strange times when someone arrives with, putting on a mask, gloves, glasses, all of these things, and just making them aware that for some people that can be comforting, but for others, it might even be a little bit more alarming as you enter their home, and being sensitive to that. So yeah, just kind of using that verbal time to level set there during a call, but nothing in terms of materials or anything sent directly.
I've shared a couple examples with the Michigan Saves of videos that are being produced, not overdone, very well done, And we're fine with those being shared with your group here. So just know that Michigan Saves will have some of those examples that our members are doing. Again, and here's one thing I feel very passionate about. This is not a marketing strategy. I want to be clear on that. We're not using this as leverage or a fear tactic. The stark reality is that if your AC goes out, you no longer have the luxury of just going to a hotel for the night or going out for dinner. Now more than ever, their home is their castle. And I love what you were saying there is it can be shocking if it's not preempted in what you'll be doing. You know, somebody shows up in a mask and gloves. That sounds odd. But yeah, there'll be some examples that I've shared.
Great, thank you. Here's a question from an HVAC contractor, one HVAC contractor to another. What type of tune-ups are you currently doing?
So
we haven't really started doing any maintenance yet. We will be starting. We've been in the process of scheduling. We're planning on doing our full regular maintenance. We do have a duct cleaning service that we're going to also offer disinfecting the ductwork. So
we as well have continued on the full maintenance track. We've added a couple of things that we haven't done in as much in the past, and that's sanitizing the interior of the cabinet and the return air duct for the customer as we go through. The other piece that we're doing is just making sure that we're safely taking care of that filter when we pull that filter out and remove that, both for customers and technicians' perspective, putting it into a trash can. Those are probably a couple of the main things that we're doing, but customers are I would say probably 80% plus of our customers are more than willing to have us in the home. They're actually happy to have us there to check that system and make sure that it's going to be up and running and ready and efficient for them to save them money and work for them should anything arise going forward.
There's a question, any recommendations for doing sales calls?
well, for our company, we've been doing virtual sales calls. I mean, the salesman, after a call is entered, the salesman will call the people, talk to them, either go through getting measurements that they want. We'll do FaceTime. We got or this XOI technology where we can do a site call, get that information. They'll prepare a quote and then present it on Zoom. It's interesting. I've been having some. I'm the sales manager in our company, so I've been having some interesting conversations with salespeople, and they're getting pretty used to doing the Zoom meetings, and are questioning what it's going to be like to sit there at the kitchen table, everybody in masks and gloves, and the content that, what's going to be lost in that communication face to face. It's almost going to be better with the Zoom. And now, doing the survey and doing the evaluation and stuff like that might need to be in the house. So, but that could be done without the homeowner there at that point too. So it's, some of it's going to be trial and error for us, and figure it out as we go.
Yeah, good. Well said there, Bill. I agree with you 100% on that last comment. As it's trial and error, and we can't be afraid of it. We have shifted as well to part of our call, kind of that information gathering piece being on a virtual aspect. And because we were finding that when we were in the home, the customers were very anxious and didn't want to spend the time that was needed to be able to go through that stuff. So being able to gather some of that stuff up front was a lot easier, and then being able to verify on site and be able to present on site. So I'd like us to be able to get to do the whole thing virtually. We just haven't been able to master it and go through it. I think we've made a few blunders there ourselves, and I think we've scared ourselves, and we just need to readdress that and push through that. But I think that's a great way. I know there's some folks out there who've had some tremendous success doing it on video. So it's happening and working out there.
Julian, you want to have the last word on this?
Just what we're watching, because Matt and I run in the same circles, there are few who profess to be wildly successful at the virtual sales call. I just want to encourage you, watch your conversion rates. You know, this is no different than anything else. This is not, just like any other aspect of managing a person, if they can find a path of least resistance and they tell you that they're running calls and doing their sales calls and they're virtual, just manage it like you would anything else. And I would offer all that you can do to set the precedent that there will be a portion that we come out, we do on site. It's going to take this long. Just get their minds wrapped around what you need and what you don't need. Because what we don't have, for the few people who are professing these virtual sales calls and their conversion rates, what we don't have is how accurate the information is for the installers, how well the jobs are going once that's getting done. So I'm just offering, follow it from beginning to end. Resist the urge to believe anything's the magic bullet, because as you all know, by running a business, nothing is. And with anything from sales to service, the importance and the expectation of the complete system evaluation. Homeowners only know that it's not cooling. They don't know about airflow. They don't know about static pressure. They don't know refrigerant, outside unit, inside unit. The less visits that you can have in their home and the clearer that you can communicate by me doing a thorough evaluation and a thorough job today, to Matt's point, they don't want to see you again for a year. If I can do everything today to keep you locked up safe in your cave for a year, today, that's worth the investment. Versus, I'm so scared right now that I can't get a thorough evaluation and you're back in 3 months because it's not working again. That's not worth it. So it's got a soapbox there a bit, but I feel strongly about that.
Great. Here's an interesting question. Please speak to the regular masks/respirators we use in retrofit work. The P100 filters are adequate, but the mask protects the user, not the occupants. Any thoughts on that?
I would think that it's just the other way around. The mask is going to protect the occupant from you spreading it, is the information that I've read. The N95 mask, the 95 stands for, it's kind of an efficiency rating for it. You know, just like a MERV rating, and the virus is much smaller than what that mask can stop. So, you know, basically a mask might stop a water droplet or something like that. But what the mask does is going to prevent you from spreading it. So it's really, when you're wearing it, it's really for the homeowner's safety.
I think it's also important to understand the deeper question behind that when our technicians bring that up, because some of our technicians are so afraid of infecting somebody, and others of our technicians are afraid of getting it or infecting themselves. So it's really working through with that technician the question behind the question in both of those, and helping them to be able to walk through that and be comfortable with it. So.
All right, so we're just a little over time. I would like to take one more quick question here, and then we'll do a quick wrap. Last question here is, are you making use of digital thermometers for employees and customers?
Not for customers. We're taking the temperature of our employees.
We are not doing either. We are asking the question every day before dispatch, but not taking temperatures.
We are taking temperatures of internal team, but not homeowners.
Okay. And then just a final word here. You may have saw on the last Michigan Safe slide, we do have some SBAM resources here. There was a comment about SBAM has a supplier network with some PPE resources as well. And then a few other comments about Williams Distributing also offering PPE items as well. So might be some other resources there for folks to check out if they're looking for PPE. So again, we're at the end of our time. I thank everyone for joining us. I do also want to thank my colleague Tanya Baker for pulling everything together on this presentation. She did a yeoman's job in a short period of time to get everything together. So thank you to Tanya as well. And thank you to all of our speakers today for sharing your insights and your suggestions on how to protect both your employees and your customers when you get out into the home. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the Michigan Saves team, and we'll be happy to help you out. Thanks again, everyone. Appreciate your time, attention, and good luck out there. Stay safe.
Thank you all.